What's up, Dream Builder? Are you someone who's interested in creating a life by your design through all things real estate? Well, I can assure you, you are in the right place. Join me, your host, Casanova Brooks. I'm an award-winning real estate agent and investor as we uncover the top tips, strategies, and the mindset of the top real estate entrepreneurs across the world. Stay locked in because we're about to go on a journey that will change your life. What's up, Dream Builder? We are back again with another real estate episode that I'm excited to share with you all because this one right here is one that can really help you to set a foundation for your empire. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming my friend, Mr. Gustavo, to the podcast. Gustavo, you want to go ahead and say what's up to Dream Nation?
Hey, DreamNation. Thanks for having me here on the show, Casanova. I really appreciate it. I'd love to give you guys a ton of value.
Oh, absolutely. This is going to be a really fun one. So for people who are not familiar with who exactly you are, do me a favor and let's talk about what is your background in real estate. Now, one thing I always love to do is I love to preface it by saying I consider entrepreneurs and especially real estate entrepreneurs to be just like superheroes. And reason being is because we're constantly flying around the world. I know you are, and trying to solve the world's biggest problems. And so behind every superhero, let's use this, behind every Superman, we know that there's Clark Kent, but behind the Superman that we know as Gustavo, tell me, who is that Clark Kent?
Yeah, great question, a great setup, man. I think it is, it actually puts you in the right mindset. So me, I originally grew up in Mexico on the border with California. That's my background. That's my history. That's my culture. That's kind of where I come from. That kind of border region between two countries. I'm born and raised in Mexico, but I was exposed to the U.S. and the U.S. culture at a very young age. A ton of my family lived in Southern California. So I consider myself a part of both communities, part of both countries. So that goes to the core of who I am as a person. And when I grew up, I had, my parents both were teachers. Academia and hitting the books and just being a straight A student was like ingrained in me. That was what was expected of me. It was what made my parents happy. Having like a son who was a great student, right? That was something that was, it was my greatest achievement was like, man, I'm at the top of the roll every single month, every single year. It was amazing. I went to school in Mexico. I got recruited out of Mexico to work in the US. That Microsoft gave me my first shot. This was the early 2000s. For those who don't remember this, back in the early 2000s, Microsoft was it. It was the be all, end all. Windows 98, Windows XP, Windows 2000. There was no other game in town back then. It was a great opportunity, and it got me I got my ticket stamped. I went to the US, and I got married, took my wife over there too. And I worked at Microsoft for 10 years. So I was following that path of engineer, Gus the engineer, Gus the high performer, type A corporate guy. That was it. And I was set in that life. Man, I had the house, the car, the lifestyle. For a kid growing up on the border, we weren't poor, but we were not wealthy by any means. Right? And then just having everything brand new and having that, for me, was a jet set lifestyle. I would travel everywhere, had a ton of money. But there was one issue. It was one issue where I realized, and this really, really took charge when I turned 30, I realized that just wasn't for me. It was a great life. It was a great setup. And if you enjoy that world, the corporate world, the high-tech software world, if that's something you want and that's something you drive for, then that's the best place ever. Microsoft's a great company. But I realized that my talents lied elsewhere. It was a great job, but it was like I worked hard at it and I did well. But I'm like, man, there's got to be something else for me. And the person, so you mentioned Superman and Clark Kent. Well, I got to bring in Lois Lane into the story as well. My wife got licensed in real estate in 2008, right? At the beginning of the whole crash.
Wow.
She got licensed. She became Rookie of the Year. I know you have a story like that, but with 8 transactions, not 50 transactions. She became Rookie of the Year by just selling 8 homes during a crisis. And I got licensed in 2010. I started helping her out. And I realized that I was way better at selling real estate than I was at making software, like way better. And I was only doing it at nights and weekends, helping out my wife. Well, I finally got the courage in 2013 to go all in and go full time into real estate, and I haven't looked back since. I started a real estate team in Seattle, and then I eventually started the company I run right now, Power ISA, where I have 65 full-time employees, all of them working virtually for teams all across the US and Canada, helping them set appointments, be successful, working with hundreds of folks all over the place. So that's where I am right now. But all of those things were building blocks. All of those things are the experiences that I needed to get where I am today.
Man, I love that. And I love that you brought your wife into it. For anybody who listens to this show, they know how much of a catalyst my wife has been for me. So I love to always give the women praise, because a lot of the times there's the one who gives us the push, right? To say, listen, no, you can be successful at this thing. And so I love I love the analogies of this Lois Lane. So kudos to you. Let's talk about, there's a couple times that you've been able to act on the feelings that you had. And that's something that a lot of people, they have those feelings, especially right now. A lot of people are in a time where maybe they could do a pivot, and they know that with the thing that I'm doing, maybe even working from home right now at this job, but I just don't know, how do I act on what I'm maybe good at, or how do I act on making this pivot? For you, what was the biggest thing? Because you said you were working at Microsoft, you were the engineer, but then you had this feeling around the age of 30 that maybe this isn't for me. What was your first couple steps that allowed you to know that, hey, I got to get out of here, and then actually take the action to get out of here? Was there a book? Was there a podcast? Did you get exposed to a networking group? What was that?
So that's a great question, because there's a few different things. But I want to tell folks, and I want to tell the audience, it's never that obvious. I read the book and I take action. And at least in my experience, it's never that. It's accumulation of things. It's an accumulation of things. My wife, when I was 19, put this book in front of me called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is, it's a phenomenal book. For me, it was a life-changing book, to be really honest with you. But I wasn't the right person at the time to really make a change and change my life. The book was there. I knew it was a pivotal book in my life. I loved it. I consumed it, and it really changed my outlook and my mindset. But I was in a different place in my life. Fast forward to 30, and I'm like, hey, this book is making even more sense now at 30 than it ever did at 19. And I really want to see another kind of model where I can bet on myself, where I can accumulate wealth, when I can make money work for me, and a lot of things that come from that book. And I didn't love that book for the real estate aspect of it, not at all. I loved it for its attitude towards money and towards wealth. That's a game changer for me. And working at Microsoft, I got the opportunity, because of my wife, to meet all these other entrepreneurs, right? Through networking. She was a member of Keller Williams. That has a great educational arm. And I'm huge into education. I love teaching. I love great instruction. And so that part of it also consumed me. And then the final part, Casanova, to be super honest with your audience here and respect the DreamNation, I had a terrible boss my last year at Microsoft. I owe that guy
everything.
Hey, I told him at the very least, I'm changing teams, maybe changing companies. And I said, I'm going to take a 6-month sabbatical and help my wife build her real estate team, because she was starting to hire, having some issues. And my specialty was building teams at Microsoft. So I said, hey, I'm going to hire and build your team. And then I'm going to go back, either go to Amazon or Google or Facebook or maybe another team at Microsoft. I'll take 6 months off. That's it. It was my safety net. I'm like, worst case, I'm back at Microsoft maybe a little bit sooner. Right. I haven't looked back since. So it was all of those things. It was all of those things. But I remember the book that really set me on the mindset of being my own boss, accumulating wealth, and changing my attitude toward money and wealth was Rich Dad. I know it's a corny answer, because a lot of
it was mine too.
It was 100% true.
100% truth. So yes, that's a staple. It's just, if you've never been exposed to that world, just like you said, for some people, they're just not ready for it yet. And it's just a big jump, especially if nobody else in your family has ever talked to you about your relationship with money. That's a big thing to then all of a sudden feel like you have the empowerment off of one book to just change everything. So I'm glad that you brought that up, and hopefully somebody listening right now, that they say, hey, you know what? Someone did give me that book over the last 1 month, 3 months, or even 1 year. Maybe let me lock back in on that. But more importantly, let me also try to add some other pieces, like getting around other entrepreneurs or other successful people that can maybe say, hey, this thing is a reality, and this is how I can create my tribe alongside trying to change my life. So I love that you said that. Now, it sounds like you automatically knew what your talent was. Was that ever a struggle for you? Because you said, hey, my wife has been struggling with hiring people. Did you ever have an imposter syndrome that, like, I don't know if I can do this for other people?
Yeah, 100%. And I make it sound like, hey, that was my superpower.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing to identify was that I was good at sales. That and really good at sales. I got the gift of gab. I can communicate and connect with people. That was the hardest skill for me to identify that I had, because at Microsoft, that was not a great skill to have. If you come off as too much of a sales guy, hey, Gus, I think you're trying to sell us here on something. Engineers can react. They don't love it when people try to sell them on stuff, right? Engineers in general. So it was not seen as a strength. Hey, Gus, you're coming off as a little bit too salesman-y. But when I met other entrepreneurs, business owners, real estate agents, team leaders, all these other folks, they embraced it, right? Like, holy cow, man, you're really good at this. And then I heard their stories and their positivity, Casanova, the positivity and the energy you get from other entrepreneurs that are successful and the ones that have bounced back, and you see the mindset and the values that they have. I was attracted. I'm like, this is what I want. This is who I want to be. And I realized, hey, I have a lot of those things. Right? It's not something I could aspire to be someday when I grow up. Hey, I'm in my 30s, man. I think I know who I am at this point. And I want to put that into practice. And I want to take a chance. Because then, and back when I made this change, I had no idea if I was going to be successful. No clue. You know what? I want to bet on myself, and I want to give myself a chance, because when I'm 65, 70, do want to look back and say I played it safe all my life? Or, man, remember that crazy time when I was 30 and I tried to be a real estate agent and I tried to be an entrepreneur? Man, I'm glad I got that out of my system. That was the worst case scenario for me. I'd laugh about it when I was in 60, 70 years old.
Man, and I love it. And I love that you stated the age as well, because 30 is a time that a lot of people, especially, did you have any kids at this time?
No kids. No kids. Honestly, I have two small kids now, but no kids helped me make that decision, to be very honest with the audience, because now I'm still an entrepreneur. I still have those ups and downs, but with a family, things change, right? Your priorities change. You always take them into consideration whenever you're going to do anything. And I was way, way, way more adventurous before I had kids, 100%.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you say that. So for anybody who doesn't have kids right now, then you got to know that you got to take the jump. You got to bet on yourself. But even if you have kids right now, I was hoping, be honest, that you said you had kids, because it's still, then you start to think about not only yourself, but you have to think about, what am I going to show my kids? Am I going to show my kids that I played it safe all my life? Am I going to show my kids that I couldn't go after my dreams? Because they're watching. They hear what you say, but at the end of the day, when you're like, yeah, go out there and you got to conquer the world. It's, yeah, but you've been working for the same job for 30 years and then you come home at the dinner table and complain about how you hate it. If you love it, that's a different story. But if you're hating it and you're like, man, my boss, everything else, but you never went after your dreams, how can you really tell me it is something I got to do? So it's all good either way. But I hope that the moral, what I got of that is, be willing to bet it all on yourself before you're willing to bet it all on someone else, Microsoft, your boss, whatever else. And at the end of the day, if you have that Lois Lane, or if you have that Superman, even, trust me, you can succeed, because all you have to do is find a tribe of people or a mentor, somebody that's already done it. And you are obviously one of those people.
100%. And surround yourself with those people, because that energy is contagious. Those ideas are contagious. And their reaction to failure in that environment, like the positive entrepreneurs, their reaction to failure is night and day compared to the engineering world. Mm-hmm. Let's just be honest about that, right? Right. When you surround yourself with people that are more analytical, that are very type A performers, can be very hard on themselves, very critical, it's very different to make a mistake and fall flat on your face in that environment versus an environment of people that have been up and down multiple times in their lives. And they go, Gus, this is part of the journey, man. You got to stick it out. You got to work through it. You can make it happen. Versus, see, man, I told you, you shouldn't have jumped out on your own. This is all your fault. Now come, I will accept you back into the flock if you apologize, right? For rocking the ship.
Man, that's critical. It's all about your environment, osmosis, right? That's so great. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes, because a lot of people right now, they're trying to figure out, okay, I want to get into real estate, or maybe I just got into real estate, but where a lot of people struggle to stay in the business. It's one of the lowest barrier to entries to get into the business, but staying in the business is one of the hardest. And why is because people struggle with two things. One, lead generation. Two, follow up. You have become an expert and a sensei at the first one, which is lead generation. And let's talk about that. I guess, where did the idea of starting this business first come from? And how did you know that this was a problem that you could solve?
Yes, really great question. So one of the things that I wanted to do when I started my real estate business was hit the ground running. My wife had already built a database. I knew a bunch of people. So number one thing that I did, which is number one thing a lot of newbies should do, was I worked my database, right? That's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the easiest way to get started. And that's how I honestly got started in real estate. At a certain point, you realize, okay, I can work my database and increase my database. But if you want to scale up, if you want to add some velocity to your business, you've got to talk to people you've never met before. Unmet leads. And that's really where I don't want to say limitless growth is, but where accelerated, huge scale can be achieved if you find a way to generate and convert people you've never met before, Casanova. So that's I think that's a big thing. And I think that's a road, I don't want to call it a roadblock, but it's a challenge in any agent's career. I think a lot of new agents go into it not knowing that those two things are completely different. Converting people in your sphere and from referral and recommendation versus going out there and talking to people who have no idea who you are, have no referral and no reference to you. It's a different thing. So when I discovered that unmet lead part and all the different activities that can help you generate unmet leads, they can come from the phone book. They can come from door knocking. They can come from open houses. They can come from paid advertising. There's a huge number of ways to generate those leads. But at the end of the day, you have the same problem, regardless of where they come from. You've got someone's name, phone number, and email, probably, and you've got to convert them into a signed client, right? That is job number. No, I said job number one is generate the unmet lead.
Right.
Job number two, make that person into a client. I think that's where a big challenge is, and where I see a lot of agents struggle. And that is why I think we have a huge failure rate in the industry. Let's be honest about that. A lot of new agents come in, they're not going to last 24 months, they're not going to last 12 months, a lot of them, because they don't generate income at all. They don't generate it fast enough, and they don't generate it consistently enough. And I think one of the key reasons that happens is they don't go into it knowing that you can generate leads from your sphere, which is a great way to do it, and it's awesome. There's another way to generate them that's unmet leads, and it has its own sets of challenges. You got to work on that. You got to educate yourself on that. You got to train on that. For me, this was, right after the crash when I went full time. You could call expired listings all day and get 2 to 3 listing appointments back in 2013. So that was very eye-opening for me. Yes, you had to work that expired script, but trust me, Casanova, it was easier to call expireds when everyone wanted to list. They couldn't sell their home the last 5 years. That was an easier call to make than it is, for example, right now. So all of these lead sources work, and they change over time. Their value is not constant, right? The challenge of converting them is not constant. It changes. And for the market of the moment, there's always a lead source that is like the best ROI, the fastest, easiest to implement in your business. And another challenge of a real estate agent is finding that lead source, right? What is it? We're recording this in the fall of 2020. In the fall of 2020, what is an amazing lead source right now? It doesn't have the challenge of maybe like an expired listing, a script or conversation, and it can get you a great throughput, great conversion. And that can be, and for me, my opinion, because I do this a lot, it's online leads, and it's specifically Facebook leads, right? That is one of those really, really interesting that's really come around, has become a huge part of the industry and around Facebook. So that is how I arrived to that. Because my company specializes in all of these unmet lead sources. We work all of them, right? We work the phone book by cold calling. We work Zillow leads, Realtor.com leads. We work even people's databases. I'll tell you, even people that you've met, we call people's databases and set appointments. But the number one lead source across the US and Canada right now is Facebook. It's got the most energy, the most enthusiasm. It's got the best return on investment if you can convert them effectively.
Wow. So now we're getting to the meat and potato, because everybody was wondering, like, what is that number one thing? And so I'm glad that you said it, because I was getting ready to say, tell us what it is. So do you think, because a lot of people, they'll hear that and they'll say, okay, but is Facebook too saturated? Because it feels like everybody's talking about Facebook and chatbots. That's what you see all over the internet. So is Facebook too saturated? And if it's not, tell us why it isn't too saturated and why we should really try to put a portion or big focus of our marketing strategy into Facebook leads.
Yeah, and I hear that comment a lot. Hey, Facebook is too saturated. There's too many people on Facebook. And I go, there's billions with a B, billions of people on Facebook, like plural, like multiple billions of people on Facebook. And I agree, there's a lot of advertisers on there. Next year, there'll be even more. And the year after that, there'll be even more, because social media, and if you do the research, is not a huge part of these of Fortune 500 companies' budgets, of real estate budgets. It's not even the biggest part. It's not a huge part, not yet. It will be. And the prices will adjust accordingly. Casanova, I don't know if you ever did Google pay-per-click. Have you ever worked with Google pay-per-click?
I have, yep.
So I worked with it back in 2014. So I could get clicks on how to buy homes in Seattle, how to buy homes in my suburb of Bothell, Washington, for pennies on the dollar, the low single dollar amounts. Right now, in the fall of 2020, that cost per click for in my area can be $5 to $10, $15 for that click, for that keyword, because it's a very valuable keyword. That keyword is now priced accordingly because it's very valuable, it's high intent, and you can convert a lot of those leads into deals. Facebook will get there. Facebook will be adequately priced at one point, but I'm telling people it's not there yet. And I still see it as an opportunity. People can jump in and make a difference and get great ROI. So for me, that's the answer to the is it saturated question. It's not saturated yet. It will be. The prices will reach where it will be adequate at some point, but they're not right now compared to other lead sources. Zillow, for example, in my area, $200 for one Zillow lead. Not necessarily going to do anything, but you cannot buy them for less, because you buy them in these packages. It's going to be $200 a pop, right? If you want to buy a fraction of the zip code. That is an adequately priced lead, because those Zillow leads, I know we can convert those to appointment 30, 40, 50% of the time. They're valuable, but they're priced accordingly. Realtor.com moving towards a referral model. They want 35% of that deal. Forget the cost per lead. They want the whole deal now. And another adequately priced lead source. So I say Facebook is nowhere near those numbers and costs. Nowhere near. It's a fraction of what the Zillows, the Realtor.coms, and the Google pay-per-clicks charge. There's other challenges to Facebook. But when I tell people saying that they're saturated, these other words are saturated. Zillow, Realtor.com, and Google pay-per-click. Facebook will get there, but it's not there yet. So I tell them there's still a huge opportunity to get people's attention. People are spending a ton of time on Facebook, and that's what you want. You want any kind of source where people's attention is at.
Got it. Yeah, no, that makes 100% sense. And it's funny, we just had a good buddy of mine on Joshua JSD mode, Josh Smith. I don't know if you know him. He's out of Arizona, but he was talking about the same thing. He's a big mega agent, and he was talking about Facebook has really been a huge driver for his business over the last 2 to 3 years. So it speaks right to your point. One thing that I was wondering is when people first start out for Facebook ads, they say, okay, Gus, you've convinced me that I need to be focused on Facebook ads. Do I need to go hire someone to run my Facebook ads? Can I simply put up a landing page and leads are going to flood into me? What does that look like? Because I know what you do is you have the ISAs that will help to convert and follow up. But in the beginning, is that something I'm hiring you for as well? Or is that something I can do on my own?
The way I tell people to start is you got to start this on your own. I would personally, for my company, I would never hire an ISA company, a marketing company, consultants to help me with something that I haven't even tried on my own. So I 100% always recommend that, especially if you're a newer agent. You don't have the budget to really hire a bunch of people to do this stuff for you. So if you don't have a ton of money, you have a ton of time. So Get on YouTube, get on Google, and figure this out. These tools, oddly enough, they're built to be used by regular consumers. They're supposed to be easy to use. They're not really, but they're supposed to be easy to use. And you can figure it out for the most part, right? If you're technical. The only people that I recommend get a pro from the start, if you're not technical at all, right? You struggle with your cell phone, and you struggle with the computer. Maybe if you're not going to do it at all, well, then get a consultant in there. Hopefully, you've got the budget for that. But I recommend everyone get into Facebook and create an ad, right? And when you're talking about creating ads in Facebook, you really got to understand who you're trying to target in that environment, right? You've got folks that are browsing, they're looking at, pictures of their kids, their neighbors, their friends, they're looking at news. A ton of people get their news from Facebook now. What you want to try and do is create something that gets people's attention, because they're scrolling in that news feed. You want to have an image that makes them stop for a couple seconds.
You want to hook
that first line of that copy. That's really all you're going to get from most people. Read that first line of copy. You better have an interesting offer. You better have something awesome to talk about, and you better have a catchy image, because you're going to get maybe a couple seconds of that person's attention, and that's it. You got to get them to do something. You got to offer them something. And if you're and Facebook, and I'm just going to tell you the answer to this, the kind of client you're looking for is the buyer. That is the best kind of lead you can generate on Facebook. Facebook can generate all kinds of leads. The one that is the easiest to generate and can generate the best ROI when you're starting out is the Facebook buyer lead. So what do buyers want? They want homes. They want lists of homes with any particular, characteristic. They want to know, they want a guide to how to win a home in this super hot seller's market, right? They want information. They want a special offer. Is there any kind of special financing that first-time home buyers can get? Something from the VA, anything that looks interesting to someone that might be thinking of buying in the next few months. That's what you want to offer in that image and in that first line of that Facebook ad. And I see Facebook ads that have 5 paragraphs. You can do that. That's fair. They only see the first line, though, when they're scrolling on the newsfeed. They don't see your 18 paragraphs. That first line has got to be interesting. It's got to be attention grabbing, and it's super key. So I recommend folks at least take it to that level, Casanova. Try it out. Create an ad. See what happens. Put $5 a day on it. Put $10 a day on it for a week and see what kind of results you can get. And then when the leads come in, because that's the magic of Facebook, leads come in almost immediately when people are coming in, pick up the phone and call them, right? Try that out. Have that experience. Because yes, 100%, half of those people are not going to pick up when you call them the first time. They're not even going to, it might not even have a good number for all. And then the other half might not pick up the first day. Maybe it takes the second day. Maybe it takes the third day. We know that because we do this at scale. We call Facebook leads, thousands upon thousands of Facebook leads, tens of thousands of calls. We know that if we try to call that Facebook lead for 60 days, 14 times, we're going to talk to the majority of them. We're going to get them, if anything, to tell them to stop calling me. That might be a way to get them on the phone. But we're going to have a conversation with 50% plus one if we just keep trying it. And that can be a hard thing to understand at the beginning. But this is where you're going to have to trust me. It works, right? It 100% works. But most people don't have the time, the persistence. They don't do time blocking. They're not organizing their follow-ups and their prospecting to really have that kind of a follow-up plan. That's where companies like mine come in. But when you're first starting out, you are the marketer. You are the ISA. You are the closer. You are the transaction coordinator, right? You are the receptionist for your team, for your real estate business. So 100% always give it a try on your own. And as soon as you can, bring in the pros, because someone that does it every day at a high level, is going to get you a better result day in and day out.
What's up, Dream Builder? I hope that you're getting a lot of value from this episode. Note takers are money makers. So I hope that you're taking lots of notes, and I hope that you'll implement something that will help to change your real estate career. If you want even more access, even more resources, and you want a community to help keep you accountable, well, I want to invite you to head on over to DreamNationAcademy.com. Again, that's DreamNationAcademy.com. That's where I hang out, as well as the team, and we host so many resources to help you along your real estate journey. So again, that's DreamNationAcademy.com. Let's go ahead and hop back on into it. Got it. So when if you're talking to me and I'm saying, hey, how do you help me to convert these leads better? You already mentioned one thing, which is contacting them 14 times. Did you say 60 times in 14 days?
14 times in
60 days.
Yeah, we can't go that intense.
I was like, I just heard those two numbers and I'm like, man, because obviously you're throwing a lot of information, valuable information. So when I heard those, I was like, wow, of course you're going to talk to people because they're going to tell you something. That's the most persistent person I've ever seen that wants to help me buy a house, especially. So that's good things. But how else do you tell me as an agent that, hey, you can help take more time off of my plate and help me convert better leads?
Yeah, awesome question, because I actually have 3 steps everyone should follow. and you will convert more Facebook leads. Actually, it applies to online leads in general, but particularly Facebook, because one thing about Facebook, I mentioned that it's an amazing cost per lead. It's a lower barrier to entry, but there's a trade-off, Casanova. A lot of these, compared to Zillow, compared to Realtor.com, compared to Google pay-per-click, you're going to get people that are not looking for homes. Facebook is not a real estate website, right? People are in another context. They're coming into it. They can be coming into your conversation very casually with just a little bit of interest. They might be 12 months out. They might be 18 months out, which is, again, it also happens with Zillow and Realtor.com. I've called those leads a lot myself.
Right.
But with Zillow and Realtor, you get about a third of them that are ready to do business now. Maybe up to half of them that want to do business now. The question is, will they do business with you? That's the only challenge. But on Facebook, it's different. We see that Facebook, about 10% want to talk to someone now. And that might not be intent, but they at least have the intention of meeting with you, talking to you on the phone, having a meeting, chatting about what their needs are. 10% of them, 90% are not going to do something right away. And if you understand that, understand the numbers, but still, there's some markets where you can buy Facebook leads at $1 a lead, 50 cents a lead. But let me go high. Let me just say it's $5 a lead, which for most markets are below that. But let's just say you get them at $5 a lead. I get 100 Facebook leads and I get 10 appointments out of that. I paid $50 per appointment. Would you pay $50 for a real estate appointment? I would pay every day of the week. I would pay $50 for an appointment because my Zillow appointments are $500, $600 for my Zillow appointments. That's what my appointments cost with those folks. Right? So at that level, the ROI is tremendous. We're talking about a 10x difference on cost. So yes, the Facebook leads, a lot of them are not going to be ready right away. But if you have any kind of follow-up sequence, any kind of nurturing method, put all of those people into that. Because even though you haven't met them, you want to put them in a database of unmet leads, and you want to do something, anything has to nurture them. At least send them an email once a month. At least invite them to your next client event. They're not clients yet, but you should get an excuse to call them and offer them something of value. So anyways, let me get back to actually answering your question. So how do you convert more of this Facebook leads? Number one is speed to lead. Speed to lead matters, right? In the Facebook context, because ideally you want to reach out to the person while they're still on their phone. They're browsing. Most people are browsing Facebook on their cell phone. They're clicking on your ad. They're sending you their information. You want to text them when they're still on their phone. You want to call them when they're still on your phone because you're much more likely to get in contact with them if you call them right or text them right away. And if you're not available to do that 24/7, there's automation. That's where the chatbots of the world come in. That's where the automatic text messaging comes in. It can be useful to at least let them know that acknowledge that you're there. That they can be very useful for that aspect of it. That's number one, speed to lead. Number two, what you mentioned earlier, that follow-up plan. You got to have some kind of follow. And it might not be 14 touches in 60 days, but it better be at least 6 touches in a week. Call them and text them. You can even alternate this, calling and texting within that first week. At the very least, do that, right? Because if you're not even doing that, you're never going to make any progress with any of these leads. You have to be intentional and you have to make the time to make these calls, to send those text messages. Text messaging, emailing can be automatic. If you got the right CRM, that's possible. But phone calls, you got to sit down and you got to grind out those phone calls one after the other. There's no other way to do it. So that second step is having some kind of follow-up plan in place and block the time to do it. That is the grind. And step number 3, and this is where a lot of agents, so I came up with these steps, Casanova, from hearing the complaints of agents that were complaining about Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. They were complaining. They never pick up, right? Oh, this leads are bogus. They're never talking to me. That's where I came up with the speed to lead and the follow-up plan. If you're not, how many calls did you make? I called them twice today. And I'm like, okay, then how about the next day? And the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that? What's your follow-up plan? Oh, okay. And then they were saying, oh, these leads don't want to meet with me. That was the next complaint, objection. Oh, they never want to meet with me. They're just browsing. They're not doing anything. I go, what are you saying to these leads when you get them on the phone? So that's my third and final step. When you actually talk to somebody from Facebook, you have to be ready to have that conversation. You got to come prepared with your scripts and understand your objections and offer them something of value, something valuable. You have to have that hook. It's going to be that awesome list of homes that you handpicked for them. It's going to be the list of the hottest homes in that area. Do you have access to off-market properties? Do you have access to these awesome first-time home buyer programs? Do you have a VIP buyer program? What is that? Make one program, something that's awesome for them. It could be, Google that. Find a great VIP buyer programs and copy them. But top agents have these programs. And it's one of the reasons they're able to get people into the office talking to them. So offer them something valuable. Have a hook. Because if you just talk to them, Casanova, and say, hey, Casanova, I saw you registered. I saw your message from Facebook. I'm going to send you that list of homes. When do you want to meet and go take a look at those? Forget about it. The answer is going to be no. The answer is no. Do you have time to meet with me? No, I don't have time to meet with you. I don't. I'm not going to meet with you, right? So not at all. And this is pre-pandemic, by the way. Same answer. It doesn't matter. They're going to go, oh, no, I don't have any time. No, I don't have any time. They don't have time to meet with you. They don't even know you. Why would they meet with you? You've given them no reason to. So you want to listen during that phone call, find out what their aspirations, goals, fears are, and you've got to find a way to say, hey, I'm the solution to that. I am a way to get to that goal. I am a way to solve that problem. If they haven't had a pre-approval done, talk to them about how awesome that is, how an important step that is, educate the consumer. If they don't know, if they don't understand they're in a seller's market, offer to educate them on that. Hey, we have a 5-point strategy to help you win your home in this market. We have to talk right away, Castro, because I want to tell you how I help my clients win that property. So all of these things, right? Because that's put yourself in the shoes of these buyers. It's a tough time out there for real estate buyers in a lot of these markets.
Oh, yeah.
They're facing a tough competition. Be the solution, be a resource, and you will get more appointments from those phone calls.
Man, so much value right there. I think anybody who was on the fence about even getting into real estate right now, they're asking themselves, do you do any coaching? Because they want to figure out how they can connect with you within the first 3 months to hit that ground running, like you said you wanted to do in the beginning. Talk to me about, for a lot of people right now, they're saying, okay, that sounds all good, but what's the downsides of it? And there's always struggles with everything. Let me ask for you, where have you seen that most people struggle even after hiring an ISA? Is there something that they still forget that they have to do? Because the lead has been converted and now maybe they're doing some follow-up, but where do some agents still go wrong? And you try to say, okay, now that we've helped you convert this lead, don't forget X.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you're a practitioner because that's exactly what can happen, right? Let's say you've got the best marketing ever. You've got the either an in-house or an outsourced or a virtual ISA team banging the phones day in and day out, getting you those appointments, those live transfers, getting you in front of, talking to people all day, right? Motivated buyers on the phone talking to you. Great. Then what happens? What can happen after that? A lot of things can happen after that. So when I tell agents about this whole process, I tell them there's several conversions you have to be well versed in. Conversion to the appointment is the first one. That's the first conversion. And if you don't have the ISA, you are the ISA. So learn how to set appointments with people. And what I just mentioned, that hook, that value, you got to get something interesting for them because they've never met you. It's a different challenge than that, right? So you got to meet with them. That's the first conversion. Second conversion, you got to get them to sign on the dotted line. They got to become your client, right? Why? Now that I've met you, Casanova, why should I work with you? You seem to have the goods. You've got some interesting information, but why should I sign with you and not another 18 agents that I might be meeting in the next 30 days? The 5 of them that called me because I clicked on Zillow last night, why shouldn't I sign with any of them? So that's the second conversion. Convert them to your client. That is a challenge. That is also scripts and objections for that scenario. And then, especially in this market, you've got to convert them to a pending deal. And in such a hot seller's market, you've got to coach, motivate, and train your client to win that house, right? To put in the right offer, to go in guns blazing and show them how they can actually get into that home. So I tell agents right now, that is the third conversion, and that's a challenge. I see a lot of agents, Casanova. I've got 14 buyer clients. Okay, great. Why do you still have 14? Why aren't they getting into homes? How long have these people been searching? Oh, we've been on 5, 6, 7 properties and we just haven't won one yet. I'm like, are you helping your client win these homes? This is part of our responsibility as professionals, right? They are looking to us to help them. So I consider that a conversion. Back in the day, in 2008, 2009, it was the same thing, but in reverse. We had to coach the listing people, the sellers, into how to hurry up and sell that home because the market was on the way down. Same kind of conversion, different client, but the same problem, how to get their home sold. They're under contract with you. They've hired you. You've got to teach them, coach them, work them, lead them into the right direction to make their goals happen, because a lot of their attitudes, values, and preconceived ideas can actually push them away from what they want, and they might not even realize it. So I don't know if that answers your question, Castro.
It does. It definitely does.
Multiple conversions that you have to work on, and you do not. So you asked, do I do coaching? I coach every day, but I don't coach people outside my organization, unfortunately, because I have 65 people to coach in my organization. So I'm constantly coaching them on scripts, objections. That's pretty much it. And I know people would love to have, hey, what's the secret sauce? It's practicing your scripts, practicing your objections, doing it every day. And once a week, the entire company gets taught by an external coach, right? Inside sales coach, rapport building coach, scripting coach, expireds coach, Facebook coaches. We always have the best in the industry coming in, talking to us about what they're seeing work right now. And they have to be practitioners, because what worked back in 2013, yes, it was great to call expireds. I know people that built their business on expireds. You really can't do that at that level right now in 2020. No. So I don't want to hear about how easy it is to convert expireds right now. I want to hear about what is having massive success right now that we can do at scale. So all of those things, the only way to get better at these conversions is by having more of them and going into them, knowing what you're going to say. And you also know, this is the funny thing about scripts, Casanova, the client knows their scripts as well. Let's just be honest about that. They are going to give you pretty much the same 4 or 5 objections every single time. And you're not going to realize that until you're actually doing it and being a practitioner. You're going to find that if you prepare for those 4 or 5 objections with a convincing professional answer, you're going to be way more successful than you imagine if you just try and wing it and use your conversational ability to run circles around them. Be prepared. Do the homework, do the work, and go into it knowing what you're going to say.
Man, so much value again. The one thing, though, that I want to make sure that we don't leave behind, because you gave us I don't want to say a clickbait, but you gave us some very good marketing there where you talked about knowing how you can convert to pending. And a lot of people that are listening or watching this right now, they say, how do I convert to pending? Like, how do I help my clients? Is there 1 or 2 things that you've learned from the industry that can help people at least be better than not having anything?
Oh, wow. So when I was an active agent, this was the biggest thing I struggled with, right? Because we were in the very early stages of a hot sellers market in Seattle back in 2013, 14, 15, when I was active as an agent. This was my hardest conversion of all of them. It wasn't the conversion to appointment. It wasn't the conversion to a signed client. It was having my clients win that bidding war. Okay, so this is an amazing question. So I'm going to give you guys something from not just that I recommend in general, but this is something I did when I was winning bidding wars in Seattle. And that is, you've got to approach it and say, you've got to put your client in the mindset that they've got to put their best foot forward. And I'm not going to, again, I can't give you a specific example of a price point, but let's say that home is listed for $450,000, listed for $450,000. And a mistake the consumers make is that, okay, it's $450,000. Let me bid a little bit above that, and then I should win. Full price offer, Gus, full price offer. So the offer depends on the market, right? The list price, sometimes it's a strategy to underprice the home because you want that pressure, you want that interest, you want 50 offers, 25 offers, 30 offers. I always have to tell my clients, the value of the home is determined by the market. Don't look at the listing price. I can show you what homes are selling for in this community in the last 30 days. Preferably, I want to look at the last 14 to 7 days. When did these homes go pending? How quick did they all have multiple offers in this price point? If a home down the street was at $450,000 and got 37 offers, I have a feeling that $450,000 is not market value. So you've got to educate your client on what the market is. You got to give them all this information. And here's the trick, Casanova. The client also has to feel that they're in control. You cannot say the offer is this, sign. You can't do that. That's just not going to be a winning strategy. But you've got to give them all the pieces of information to put their best foot forward and win that property. And you've got to convince them, coach them, because here's the thing. If they win the bidding war, this is also an amazing piece of psychology. If they win the bidding war, they can have buyer's remorse. They're like, whoa. Holy, what do you mean I won? It's too much. I overbid. We got to get it back at the inspection. We got to get it back at. They're feeling like they've gotten robbed almost, right? You can have that reaction. It's a really strange situation as a realtor to face that. You're taking a victory lap. Hey, we beat all these people. We're great. And your clients say, we could have paid a little bit less, right? The value of the home is what you are willing to pay for it. And I'm brushing aside, there's appraisals, all these things for sure. All these things are real. You have to deal with that as well. But I'm just saying the value of the home is what a motivated, qualified buyer is willing to pay for. So getting people out of the mindset, that scarcity mindset, that fear is important, because most objections, and this goes in general for all the conversions, most objections that are based on fear are typically not rational objections. They're typically not rational. People have not really thought through. They're just scared. So if they have someone in their corner that's helping educate them on the market, telling them what's going on, much more likely they're going to make a rational decision at the end of the day. So the price is $450, but the market is way above that. And if you're not ready to compete, let's stop looking at homes that are at $450. Let's look at something that's more adequate to your price range. And you have to be honest about that. I see so many agents in this market, Casanova, wasting time with buyers that are not qualified or are not motivated to put in the right offer. As an agent, you have to protect your time as well. You don't have to be dealing with people that are not coachable. They're not coachable, right? They don't want to be educated. They know more than you do, and they're not going to listen to you. I think as agents, we have to be respectful of our time, and we have to be honest from them. And honesty also comes from love as well. If you care for someone, you're honest with them, right? If you care for yourself, you're also honest with yourself. So all of these things come into play, and you got to make sure that you're working with qualified buyers that actually want to move into their house.
Man, I love it. I love it. That right there, the transparency, the honesty, and setting the right expectations. That's so huge. I remember when I first started my real estate career, my broker at that time, he had said, if you think about it, agents get paid in direct correlation to the amount of tough conversations that they're willing to have.
I love that. That's really good.
Yeah, I remember him saying it. And I was like, man, and that's what it is. You talked about it in 2013, 2014, getting people to price their homes accordingly, setting the right expectations. But that was how you would get your commission at the end of the day, because you had to have that tough conversation and you had to be truthful, but you had to be transparent. And that's what I love. And so I hope that someone hears that and they say, you know what, because that's what we never want to do, buyer or seller. We don't want to have those tough conversations. And that gets us in trouble a lot of the times because we think we can sweep it under the rug, but it always comes back.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and one of the things I used to help my team back in the day and how to out my ISAs, being honest with people is caring for them.
Right.
Not caring is just going with the flow and not saying anything. When you know what your client is doing is wrong and you haven't voiced for them, you failed them in a sense, right? You're not doing your job. And every agent knows that feeling of, this isn't, I really shouldn't be doing that. I know what I'm doing, and the client might not know what they're doing, and we're letting them run wild and not helping them out. And I think that I don't think we do a great service in those scenarios. I think, but you're right, it's difficult. I have a lot of empathy for folks because it is a difficult part of the job. And even more importantly, Casanova, you had the luck of having someone tell you that, hey, these tough conversations aren't a tragedy. They aren't a failure. They are part of the job. And the more successful you are is proportional to your ability to have them. I love that, man. I'm going to steal that. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such an important piece of advice.
For sure. Man, this has been a phenomenal conversation. For anyone who wants to stay connected with you, learn more about how you and your business can help, we'll make sure that we put all of the links in the show notes. But where can they find you at, Gus?
Yeah, so you can find me at powerisa.com. That's my company website. But the place I'm most active on is, you guessed it, Facebook, right? That's where I have a lot of my conversations. I do a lot of lives. I have a free Facebook group people can join that we talk about marketing mastermind, right? That's what we talk about, what's working right now, the kind of ads that's working right now, all that information. I would love to continue the conversation with folks there.
Cool. We'll definitely, again, put all of those links in the show notes. The last question that I have for you, and it's one that I ask everyone. there's someone that's out there that's listening right now that has that little voice in their head and it's telling them that they're not strong enough, they're not smart enough, or maybe they just don't have enough resources to succeed when it comes to real estate or even sales in general. What's the one thing that you would leave with that person to get them to just take action?
Oh my goodness, that's a really powerful question. I love that question. So I think for me, and I'm a very cautious person. I want people to take the impression that I'm like the brash entrepreneur, trailblazer, pioneer. That's not me, actually. I'm a risk averse person. So I love taking risks, calculated risks. But
Mm,
the one thing that tipped the scale for me, Casanova, to be really honest, is I realized how little I had to lose at the end of the day. How little I had to lose. Because for me, having that Microsoft job, that corporate job, was about having the house and having the cars and having that lifestyle. When I went into real estate, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment and sold one of my cars. I'm like, this is just stuff. And if I want to, I can try and go get that stuff back if I really need it. But I
right.
realized how little I actually needed it because it was great stuff, but I wasn't the person that I wanted to be. I wasn't in the place where I wanted to be in my life. So if people realize if the worst thing that can happen to you is you lose some of your stuff, that if that's the worst case scenario, put yourself in the right spot, right? That's no risk at all. You have your health, you have your family, you guys are taking work. The US is the greatest country for entrepreneurship in the world. 2020 is the best year for entrepreneurship in history so far. I have a
Right.
feeling 2021 is gonna be even better. So when you realize that, you're like, this, it's a no-brainer to at least give yourself a chance and bet on yourself. But for me, and this is what I recommend everyone do, realize how little you actually have to lose. Life is there. You can live it. You're going to have your ups. You're going to have your downs. If the worst thing you can do is lose some of your toys and become a better person out of it, more experienced, then you're going to win-win no matter what.
Man, there you have it. Remember, Dream Nation, just as he said, you have to take action. Real estate is a contact sport and it's all about the action that you take. Otherwise, that dream that you have, it will only merely be a fantasy. And that's not what you want. So that's all we got for this one. We'll see you on the next one. First, I want to say thank you for allowing me to walk with you on this real estate journey. If you've gotten anything out of this episode, do me a favor and head on over to iTunes if you have access and leave me a review. My whole goal is to make sure that I'm serving you all the right way. You're my tribe. You're who I care about. You're why I do this. So if you want to give me any type of thanks, or if you want to let me know whatever your thoughts or your feelings are from this episode or any other episode that you've listened to, leave me a rating or review. And also, if you're looking for more tips, strategies, and even resources when it comes to leveling up your real estate game, head on over to DreamNationAcademy.com. We have a really cool real estate section there, and it's something that I wish that I would have had when I first got started in real estate. So that's DreamNationAcademy.com. Don't wait. I'll see you on the other side.